She gave her son the bakery while she traveled. What he did, behind her back, destroyed him. If you enjoy stories about family, betrayal, and karma, finally catching up to the people who deserve it, hit like and subscribe before we get started. It helps this channel grow, and it means more stories like this one land in your feed every week. The bakery had gone quiet for the night. The ovens were cooling, the last of the flour dust had settled on the counters, and the smell of that morning's sourdough still hung in the air. Lucy sat alone in her small office at the back of the shop, going over the monthly sales numbers, by the light of a single desk lamp. The figures were good, better than good. What had started as a single storefront 15 years earlier now shipped baked goods to customers across the entire country. Orders came in from cities she had never even visited. It was the kind of success most small business owners only dream about. But success had a cost, and Lucy had been paying it for a long time. She was 62 years old. Her hands, still dusted faintly with flour even after she washed them, had built this business from nothing. She had started it 15 years ago, in the months after her husband passed away, when grief had left her with two choices: sink into it, or find something to pour herself into. She chose the second one. She turned an old family bread recipe into a business, and the business turned into a legacy. But legacies are heavy to carry alone, and lately, Lucy felt every ounce of that weight. She was tired in a way that sleep didn't fix anymore. The office door opened, and her son Patrick stepped in. He had worked alongside her for years, managing the books, learning the ins and outs of the business from the ground up. He was 34 now, with his father's calm voice and his mother's sharp eyes for numbers. Lucy looked up from the spreadsheet and gave him a tired smile. "Long day," she said. "You say that every day, Mom," Patrick replied, pulling up the chair across from her desk. "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about." Lucy set down her pen and leaned back in her chair, giving him her full attention. "Go on." Patrick took a breath. The kind people take when they've rehearsed something in their head a dozen times before saying it out loud. "I know you're exhausted. I've watched you run yourself into the ground for 15 years. You built something incredible. Here, but you've earned a break. Eve and I have talked about it a lot, and we want to take over the day-to-day running of the bakery. The real responsibility. Not just the books, everything. We think it's time for you to finally get to enjoy your life. Travel, rest, whatever you want." Lucy studied her son's face. There was something earnest in his eyes, something that looked, on the surface, like genuine love and concern. And there was a part of her, the exhausted part, that wanted so badly to believe every word of it. Still, a small voice in the back of her mind hesitated. She had built this bakery brick by brick, relationship by relationship, and handing it over, even to her own son, felt like handing over a piece of her husband's memory along with it. But she was tired, and Patrick had never given her a reason not to trust him. "All right," she finally said. "We'll do a trial run, 3 months. You and Eve take the lead. I'll step back, and we'll see how it goes." Patrick's face lit up. "You won't regret this, Mom. I promise you. I won't let you down." That night, Lucy went home and did something she hadn't done in over a decade. She opened her laptop and booked a full month-long vacation to Europe. It was something she had dreamed about, since she was a young woman, long before the bakery, long before grief had rewritten her plans. For the first time in 15 years, she let herself imagine mornings that didn't start with flour under her fingernails. The first few weeks away were everything she had hoped for. She wandered cobblestone streets in cities she had only ever seen in photographs. She ate meals she didn't have to cook herself. She slept without an alarm. For a little while, she let herself forget about ovens and invoices and payroll. Then, 3 weeks in, her phone rang. It was her head baker, a man who had worked beside her since the very first day she opened the shop, back when it was just the two of them and a single mixer that jammed if you overloaded it. His voice was tight and careful, the voice of someone trying not to sound as upset as he actually was. He told her that Eve had taken over the kitchen completely, She was rewriting recipes that had been in place for years, changing suppliers without warning, and treating the staff, some of whom had been there since the beginning, with a kind of cold contempt that had never existed in that kitchen before. When he had pushed back, Patrick had sided with his wife every time. The head baker told Lucy plainly and painfully that if things didn't change, he would have no choice but to quit. Lucy felt her stomach drop. This was a man who had shaped up half the recipes on her menu, who had trained new hires with more patience than she ever had. Losing him wasn't just losing an employee, it was losing a piece of the bakery's soul. "Please," she told him, gripping the phone tightly. "Don't quit. Give me 2 days. I'm coming home." She hung up, and within hours she had rebooked her flight, cutting her long-awaited vacation short by more than a week. When Lucy walked through the bakery doors 2 days later, something felt wrong before she even reached the counter. The usual morning rush was there, the smell of baking bread was there, but Patrick and Eve were nowhere in sight. When she asked one of the staff where they were, the answer stopped her cold. They were on vacation. They had left the bakery understaffed and in chaos to take a trip of their own. Lucy didn't waste a single minute. She went straight to her office and pulled up the books, the same books she had trusted her son to manage responsibly. What she found made her sit down slowly in her chair, her hands trembling slightly as she scrolled through transaction after transaction. Patrick and Eve had been siphoning money from the business. Thousands of dollars had gone toward leasing a luxury apartment downtown, the kind with marble countertops and a doorman. More money had gone toward leasing a brand new luxury car, the kind that turned heads in a parking lot. While Lucy had been touring quiet European streets, believing her son was steady at the helm of the family business, he and his wife had been quietly bleeding it dry for their own comfort. Lucy didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply picked up the phone and, with a calm that surprised even her, called the bank and froze the bakery's business account so not another dollar could leave it. Then she called Patrick. He answered cheerfully, clearly, not expecting the call, and started to explain himself the moment she told him to come home immediately. He tried to argue, tried to talk over her, tried to smooth things out the way he always had as a kid when he'd broken a rule and wanted to explain his way out of trouble. Lucy hung up on him before he could finish a sentence. Patrick and Eve returned. The next morning, sunburned and clearly annoyed at having their vacation interrupted. Lucy was waiting for them in the office, the same office where Patrick had once promised her he wouldn't let her down. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She told him the trial period was over, effective immediately. She told him that he and Eve were both fired and that they would never set foot behind that counter again. As Patrick opened his mouth to protest, Lucy held up a hand and cut him off cold. "You will pay back every single cent you stole from this business," she said. "Every dollar, and you will never show your face here again." Patrick tried to argue that it wasn't stealing, that it was an investment in the business's image, that a successful bakery needed to look successful. Lucy simply looked at him, this grown man standing in the office his father had once helped, paint, and felt something in her chest harden into resolve. "Get out," she said quietly. "Both of you." What came next unfolded exactly the way these stories so often do. Without Lucy's income, and without a business to hide behind, Patrick and Eve's finances collapsed almost overnight. The luxury apartment they had leased with stolen money was gone within weeks. The lease terminated the moment they could no longer make payments. The luxury car followed soon after, repossessed from a parking lot in the middle of the night. The lifestyle they had built on someone else's hard work crumbled the instant that support was pulled away. They ended up in a small, worn-down apartment on the other side of town, the kind of place with thin walls and a leaking faucet that never quite got fixed. Patrick found work on a factory floor, doing shift work that left his hands blistered in ways they never had been behind a bakery counter. Eve took a job at a call center, answering complaints from strangers for minimum wage. The life they had tried to fast-track for themselves turned out to be slower, harder, and far less comfortable than the one they had thrown away. Lucy, meanwhile, went back to running her bakery the way she always had, with steady hands and clear eyes. She brought her head baker in as a partner, someone she trusted completely, someone who had never once tried to take more than he had earned. The business kept growing, kept shipping loaves and pastries across the country, kept carrying the legacy she had built from grief and flour 15 years earlier. She still travels now and then. But these days, she makes sure someone she truly trusts is watching over what she built before she ever boards a plane. Patrick and Eve learned a lesson that no amount of luxury leasing could have taught them any other way. Greed doesn't build anything that lasts. It only borrows against a future that eventually comes due, and when it does, it takes everything with it. If this story hit home for you, or if it reminded you of someone in your own life, let us know in the comments. And if you want more real stories about family, betrayal, and the moments when karma finally shows up, make sure you're subscribed and give this video a like before you go. It genuinely helps this channel keep telling stories like Lucy's.